Thank you for staying with me here on We Connect as we continue to connect with Professor Howard Gardner from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Professor Gardner, we talk a lot about corruption these days in India, and you are interested in ethics, and I'm just wanting to draw you out on that.
Well, this really is my passion now, and for the last 15 years, with wonderful colleagues in the United States, but also an increasing number in the rest of the world, we're trying to understand what we call good work. And good work we define as work that's technically excellent, people know what they're doing, it's personally engaging and meaningful, because once work stops having meaning, then
there's no point really to it, yes.
But the third aspect is the work is carried out in an ethical way. And by ethics, I mean the work isn't just carried out to promote yourself, your own selfish interest, but rather you think about the broader implications of your work, whether you are an engineer, architect, teacher, lawyer, physician, nurse, social worker, that you're trying to think about how to help the people you work with and how to help the broader community. Now, of course, this is not a new question. It's not a new issue, but my own analysis is particularly in the Anglo-American world, particularly in Britain and the United States, markets have become so powerful that they dominate every aspect of life. And the question that my colleagues and I began to ask years ago is education valuable if it's only given to people who can afford it?
That's right.
Is medical care valuable only to people who have a lot of disposable income, and so on? And I have nothing against markets. They make the world go around, but markets need to be tempered. And historically, they've been tempered by religious or ideological or communitarian perspectives. I mean, you know, India went through a socialist period in the 50s and 60s, and that balanced the markets. And of course, markets opened up here, and that was fine. But when markets dominate everything, ethics disappears. And we've seen that in the United States, and the Enron incident in 2001, Lehman Brothers in 2008, and indeed in hundreds of different companies where the bottom line of how much money you made kept people from being honest about the books they were keeping, being honest about the papers that they were selling, and so on. And so in the Good Work Project, we begin as researchers, we try to understand what happens in these different professions, but then we try to intervene as much as we can.
Really?
In the area of journalism, we created something called a traveling curriculum. We work with over 300 journalistic institutions in the United States trying to help people rediscover what journalism should be. And I have to admit, even being in India for only 2 days, to see how little journalism there is in the newspapers and how much simply celebrity kinds of gossip. I think a little injection of journalist ethics would be in use here.
Yes, there are some ethical journalists around. I must confess. Yes.
But speaking more broadly, most of our work is with young people, and we've created what we call reflection groups, where young people, before they begin to go out to make a living, begin to talk about what their goals are in life, what their options are, both occupationally, and what they're going to do when they actually go out into the workplace, whatever kind of career they pursue.
Right. Is it possible, in your opinion, to actually instill ethics in people? What do you think about that?
Well, that's of course a very complicated question, but I probably know more about it than most people, because as part of the Good Work Project, we studied over 1,200 professionals in detail in 9 different sectors. To my surprise, but probably not to your surprise, many of the people who we admired talked about having strong religious background, whether or not they were currently religious, so having some kind of a strong belief system when you're young. The second most important thing was the atmosphere at their first job. If at the first job, to do a good job meant to be responsible, ethical, try to do the right thing, it had enormous impact, particularly when people who weren't that way were dismissed from the company.
Right.
Conversely, if your first job involved cutting corners, what we call compromised work, or role models who said one thing and did one another, that was very corrupting. We talk about 3 different forces on the worker. One is vertical support, are the people in your organization who are higher up, how do they behave, what messages do they send? We talk about horizontal support, your peers, if most of your peers are ethical and moral, that presents the pressure, and vice versa. And then what we call booster shots or wake-up calls. Something dramatic happens in your profession. Either somebody who's respected is shown to be completely fraudulent, or conversely, somebody who was in the wings does something very, very admirable, blows the whistle in bad work, and that can have an effect on people. So I guess the reason it's complicated, it's a continuing story. Nobody's born ethical, nobody's born unethical, and I don't believe anybody can ever say, I'm ethical forever. And so at my own university, I'm trying to develop what we call common spaces, where people talk about the ethical problems they've had, what they've done, reflect on it, ask other people to participate. What could you have done better the next time? Because I think it's a communal decision. Anybody who thinks that they can be the chief arbiter of their own ethics is deluding themselves.
Right. Well, Professor Gardner, I've run out of time, but I would like, as I say thank you to you, I would like to say that I absolutely love the last part of this interview where you're talking about ethics and how important those are in our modern day world. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful trip to India.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's all we have time for here in Reconnect, but I'm really glad that you could join us here. And don't forget to keep watching this program every single Friday night at 9:30. You know for sure you're going to have and meet with people who are interesting, people who always have a story to tell us. And I think that's very important. And don't forget, I'd love to hear from you. Feedback at ndtv-hindu.com. And so until the next week, you take care. Bye for now.